Hello everyone. Have you ever wondered what truly makes life meaningful? We often pursue success, happiness, and inner peace, but few understand that these are the outcomes of profound lessons learned along the way. Today, I want to share some deep life lessons rooted in the wisdom of Stoic philosophy, which has stood the test of time for thousands of years. These lessons can help you not only overcome adversity, but also transform how you view yourself and the world around you. By embracing these teachings, you may discover a path to real, lasting change. So let's dive in and explore these Stoic-inspired lessons that could change your life forever. Lessons 1. No one is too busy. It's only a matter of priorities. On a crisp autumn morning in the heart of a bustling metropolis, a young woman named Sophia rushed down a crowded street. She was ambitious, driven, and full of dreams, just like countless others around her. Sophia had moved to the city a year ago with hopes of building a successful career and forming deep, meaningful relationships. But lately, she felt like she was always chasing people, reaching out for coffee dates, initiating conversations, and trying to maintain connections that seemed to slip away like sand through her fingers. It was not that people rejected her outright. In fact, their responses were always polite. "I'd love to, but I'm just so busy right now." Sophia kept hearing this over and over, each time feeling a sting of rejection, a quiet whisper of self-doubt that made her question whether she was truly valued by those she cared about. One evening, feeling particularly disheartened after yet another canceled dinner plan, Sophia found herself wandering aimlessly through the streets. She stumbled upon an old, dimly lit bookstore with a sign that read, "Wisdom of the Ancients." Out of curiosity, she stepped inside. Her eyes fell upon a worn-out book with the title, The Teachings of Stoicism. She picked it up, and one phrase on the first page caught her eye. "It is not what happens to you, but how you respond to it, that matters." Intrigued, Sophia bought the book and began reading it that very night. The teachings of the Stoics, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and Seneca, captivated her. One particular concept resonated deeply. No one is too busy. It's only a matter of priorities. The words hit her like a bolt of lightning. She suddenly realized that all the time she felt ignored or unimportant, it wasn't necessarily because she lacked value. It was simply that she wasn't a priority to those people at that moment. Sophia felt a mixture of relief and determination. She understood that she couldn't control whether others made her a priority, but she could control how she responded. She decided to change her approach entirely. Instead of constantly reaching out and trying to fit into other people's schedules, she began focusing on her own priorities. She asked herself, "What makes me happy? What do I truly want to invest my time and energy in?" The next morning, Sophia sat alone at her favorite cafe, sipping coffee and reading more about Stoicism. For the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of calm. She began embracing the Stoic idea of self-sufficiency, the belief that true happiness comes from within and is not dependent on the actions of others. She started prioritizing herself, pursuing hobbies she had always wanted to try, exploring the city's art galleries, and even taking up a yoga class she'd been putting off. As Sophia began to focus on her inner growth, something unexpected happened. People noticed a change in her. She no longer seemed desperate for their attention, and that made her even more attractive. Her coworkers were drawn to her newfound sense of calm and confidence, and her friends reached out to her more frequently. Ironically, by making herself her own priority, she became a priority for others. But what truly mattered to Sophia was not the renewed attention from those around her, but the realization that she no longer felt like a victim of others' busy schedules. She had found strength in herself. She no longer took others' lack of availability personally, understanding that everyone has their own struggles, commitments, and choices. She also recognized that it was not her responsibility to constantly prove her worth to others. One afternoon, she ran into an old friend who had repeatedly canceled plans with her in the past. The friend apologized profusely, but Sophia, with a warm smile, simply replied, "It's okay, I understand." Her friend looked surprised at how genuinely unbothered Sophia was. Sophia felt a wave of inner peace. The Stoics had taught her that true power lies not in forcing others to prioritize you, but in remaining centered, regardless of how others behave. The Stoic lesson, "No one is too busy, it's only a matter of priorities," had transformed Sophia. She realized that her self-worth was never truly defined by how others treated her. Instead, it was defined by how she treated herself. The only person who needed to make her a priority was herself. With this realization, she felt a profound sense of freedom. She understood that inner peace comes not from seeking others' approval, but from being content with one's own actions, choices, and character. Sophia's story is a reminder that in life, there will always be people who are too busy, and there will always be moments of feeling overlooked. But as the Stoics teach us, what truly matters is how we respond to these situations. We can choose to let them break us, or we can choose to let them strengthen us. Sophia chose the latter, and it changed her life forever. Lessons 2. Success doesn't come from safety. Picture this. It's a bright sunny morning, and Daniel, a young entrepreneur, is sitting in his small cozy office, sipping coffee and scrolling through a list of potential clients. Daniel had always played it safe in life. He grew up in a conservative household where taking risks was discouraged. His parents, who were both hardworking but risk-averse, often told him, "Stability is success." And for most of his life, Daniel had followed that mantra. He made cautious career choices, avoided confrontations, and always took the path of least resistance. But deep down, there was a fire within him, a burning desire to do something bigger, bolder, and more meaningful. He had dreams of launching a tech startup that could revolutionize the way small businesses operate, but every time the thought surfaced, fear held him back. What if it fails? He would think to himself. What if I lose everything? The comfort of his current job felt too precious to give up, even if it meant giving up on his true aspirations. Then one day, while visiting a local library, Daniel stumbled upon a book of Stoic teachings. Curiosity piqued. He decided to take it home. That evening, as he read through Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, he found a phrase that stopped him in his tracks. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. For the first time, Daniel realized that his fears and doubts were not obstacles to be avoided, but rather paths that needed to be explored. The words of Marcus Aurelius resonated deeply with Daniel. He had always assumed that success came from avoiding risk and maintaining stability. But here was a Stoic philosopher, a Roman emperor, no less, who advocated facing challenges head-on, using them as stepping stones rather than barriers. It was a complete shift in perspective, one that both frightened and excited him. The Stoic principle that the obstacle is the way became Daniel's new mantra. The following day, Daniel decided to make a bold move. He quit his job. His colleagues were shocked, his parents were worried, and his friends were skeptical. But Daniel felt a strange sense of liberation. For the first time, he wasn't running away from his fear. He was running toward it. With limited savings, he poured all his energy into developing his startup. He worked tirelessly, coding late into the night, attending networking events, and pitching his ideas to investors. At first, it was incredibly challenging. There were moments when he doubted his decision, times when he thought about going back to the safety of a 9-to-5 job. The startup faced setbacks, funding fell through, a major partnership collapsed, and Daniel's bank account dwindled dangerously low. But instead of retreating, Daniel leaned into the Stoic mindset even more. He remembered another Stoic teaching. What we fear doing most is usually what we most need to do. Daniel decided to embrace each obstacle as a lesson. The failed partnership taught him the importance of clear communication. The funding issues forced him to become more resourceful and resilient. Instead of seeing setbacks as reasons to give up, he saw them as opportunities to improve and grow stronger. The challenges no longer felt like threats, but rather tests of his commitment and character. He had moved beyond the pursuit of safety. He was now pursuing purpose. Months turned into a year, and the startup that once seemed like a fragile dream began to take shape. Daniel secured a major investor who believed in his vision. He built a small but dedicated team, each member inspired by his unwavering determination. Daniel had learned the hard way that real success doesn't come from staying comfortable. It comes from embracing uncertainty and pushing past fear. He was living proof that the Stoic principle of using obstacles as fuel for progress was not just theoretical wisdom. It was practical, transformative guidance. One day, Daniel found himself sitting in a conference room, preparing to give a presentation to a room full of potential partners. As he looked out at the crowd, he remembered the words of Seneca. "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." Daniel had spent so much of his life avoiding risk because he feared failure. But now he understood that daring to face difficulty was the only progress to make progress. The presentation was a success, and his startup gained a significant partnership that propelled the company forward. Daniel felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment, not just because of the deal, but because he had learned to embrace the discomfort of uncertainty. He understood now that success is not the absence of obstacles, but the mastery of them. Daniel's story is a reminder of one of the most profound Stoic teachings. Success doesn't come from safety. The Stoics believed that true growth and fulfillment come from facing challenges head-on, not from avoiding them. Life's greatest achievements often lie on the other side of fear, beyond the walls of comfort and familiarity. By stepping into the unknown, we not only discover our true potential, but also build the resilience needed to thrive in a constantly changing world. So the next time you feel the urge to play it safe, remember Daniel's journey. Consider this. What if the thing you fear most is the very thing you need to conquer? The Stoics teach us that our fears are often signposts pointing us toward the path of growth. It's not about recklessness. It's about having the courage to face discomfort, to allow obstacles to be the way forward, and to understand that real success is not about avoiding risks, but about mastering them. Lessons 3. Do not rely on others to heal your wounds. In a small, quiet town nestled among rolling hills, there lived a woman named Anna. She was known for her kindness and willingness to help others, but beneath her warm smile was a deep-seated sadness. Anna had endured a series of betrayals and heartbreaks throughout her life. Friends who had drifted away, a fiancé who had left her without explanation, and colleagues who had taken advantage of her trust. Each time Anna was hurt, she sought comfort in those around her. She confided in friends, hoping that sharing her pain would lighten the burden. Sometimes it worked. Her friends offered words of comfort, and she felt a temporary sense of relief. But more often than not, the wounds remained open, raw, and unhealed. The comfort was fleeting, and Anna found herself caught in a cycle of dependency, constantly seeking validation and reassurance from others. One rainy afternoon, as she sat alone in her living room, Anna picked up a book she had borrowed from a neighbor. The Stoic Path to Inner Peace. She had heard about Stoicism, but knew little about its teachings. As she began reading, she came across a quote from Epictetus. "Seek not to have things happen as you wish, but wish for them to happen as they do." The words were simple, yet they struck a chord deep within her. She realized that she had been fighting against reality, expecting others to mend her broken heart, when in fact, the power to heal was always within her. Another passage stood out. "No one can harm you unless you allow it." It was a revelation for Anna. She had spent so much time blaming others for her pain, yet she hadn't considered how she had allowed their actions to affect her so deeply. For the first time, she saw her vulnerability not as a flaw, but as a starting point for personal growth. She recognized that while she couldn't control the actions of others, she could control how she responded to them. Determined to change, Anna decided to embark on a journey of self-healing based on the principles of Stoicism. The first step was to embrace solitude, not as a punishment, but as a necessary space for reflection and inner work. At first, it was incredibly challenging. She felt the familiar urge to call a friend, to vent, to seek sympathy. But she resisted. Instead, she started journaling her thoughts, reflecting on her feelings without judgment. Each day, she would write down her pain, her frustrations, and her hopes. She learned to observe her emotions without being consumed by them, following the Stoic advice to view things objectively, without attachment or aversion. The process was slow, and there were days when Anna felt overwhelmed by loneliness. But the Stoic teachings reminded her that solitude could be a teacher, a guide to deeper understanding. Seneca had once said, "He who is brave is free." For Anna, bravery meant facing her pain alone, not out of bitterness or isolation, but out of a genuine desire to heal from within. She began to see her wounds not as weaknesses, but as opportunities for self-discovery and growth. One day, as she was reflecting on her past relationships, Anna came across another Stoic insight. Do not rely on others to heal your wounds, for only you hold the key to your inner peace. She understood now that expecting others to heal her was not only unfair to them, but also unfair to herself. Healing, she realized, was not about forgetting the past, but about making peace with it, on her own terms. Gradually, Anna developed new habits that supported her self-healing journey. She took up meditation, finding solace in the quiet moments of stillness. She started practicing gratitude, not just for the good things in her life, but for the painful experiences as well. After all, the Stoics believed that adversity was the best teacher. Every scar was a reminder of her resilience, of her ability to endure and overcome. Anna's transformation became evident to those around her. Her friends noticed that she was no longer as reliant on their support. She seemed more centered, more at peace. When they asked her about it, Anna simply smiled and quoted Marcus Aurelius, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." She had come to understand that true healing didn't mean never feeling pain again. It meant having the strength to face it, process it, and move forward without being consumed by it. There was one particular encounter that truly tested Anna's newfound Stoic resilience. She ran into her ex-fiancé at a local cafe, someone she had once loved deeply and who had caused her significant heartache. He looked surprised and slightly uneasy upon seeing her, but Anna felt a sense of calm she hadn't expected. She wasn't angry, nor was she seeking closure. Instead, she felt gratitude for the lessons she had learned through their failed relationship and for the strength it had given her. When he awkwardly apologized for the past, Anna responded with a simple but profound line, "It's okay. I've learned to heal on my own." There was no bitterness, no lingering hurt, just acceptance. For Anna, this moment was a testament to her journey, a journey that had taught her that real healing comes not from others' apologies or explanations, but from a deep, inner acceptance of oneself. Anna's story illustrates the Stoic lesson that do not rely on others to heal your wounds. While it is natural to seek comfort from others, the Stoics remind us that true peace and healing come from within. It is a process of self-mastery, one that requires courage, patience, and a willingness to face one's own pain without fear or blame. The Stoics teach that by taking responsibility for our inner world, we reclaim the power to shape our own destiny, unburdened by the actions or inactions of others. So, the next time you find yourself reaching out to others for comfort, pause and ask, am I giving myself the care and understanding that I seek from others? Remember, healing is an internal process, not an external event. It's not about shutting people out, but about strengthening the relationship you have with yourself. As the Stoics say, be your own best friend, your own healer, and your own guide. Lessons 4. True value lies in experiences and self-care. In a bustling city, surrounded by towering skyscrapers and neon lights, lived a man named Ethan. Ethan was a successful businessman who had built a comfortable life for himself. He owned a luxury apartment, drove an expensive car, and wore designer clothes. On the surface, Ethan seemed to have it all. Yet despite his material success, there was an emptiness inside him, a nagging feeling that something was missing. He would often find himself standing in his spacious living room, staring out at the city lights, wondering why he still felt so unfulfilled. One evening after a particularly stressful day at work, Ethan collapsed onto his couch, feeling drained and dissatisfied. He picked up his phone and scrolled through social media, only to be bombarded by images of others seemingly living joyful, meaningful lives. Frustrated, he put down his phone and noticed a small, lit old book on his coffee table. It was a gift from his late father, titled Letters from a Stoic by Seneca. Ethan had never bothered to read it, but tonight, something drew him to it. He opened the book to a random page and read, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." The words hit him like a punch in the gut. He realized that despite all his possessions, he was constantly craving more. More money, more recognition, more things to fill the void within. Ethan had always believed that accumulating wealth and possessions would bring him happiness. But here was Seneca suggesting the opposite. that true wealth lies not in material possessions, but in the richness of experiences and inner peace. Determined to explore this newfound wisdom, Ethan decided to shift his focus from accumulating more to experiencing more. He started small, signing up for a cooking class at a local community center. At first, he felt out of place among the other participants who ranged from college students to retirees, but as the class progressed, he found himself genuinely enjoying the simple act of cooking. It wasn't about impressing anyone, it was about creating something with his own hands and savoring the process. For the first time in years, Ethan felt a sense of joy that wasn't tied to a price tag or social status. Inspired by the Stoic principle that true value lies in experiences, Ethan began to prioritize experiences over possessions. He traveled to places he had always wanted to visit but never made time for, not staying in five-star hotels, but choosing modest accommodations that allowed him to connect with the local culture. He spent time exploring museums, hiking trails, and even attending meditation retreats. Each experience brought a new perspective, teaching him more about the world and, more importantly, about himself. During one of his trips, Ethan visited a small village in the mountains. The villagers led simple lives, with few material possessions, yet they radiated a sense of contentment and warmth that Ethan hadn't felt in a long time. One evening, as he sat by a campfire, a wise old man from the village shared a Stoic teaching that Ethan would never forget. The greatest wealth is a peaceful mind. The old man explained that, in their village, success wasn't measured by how much one owned, but by how much one gave and experienced. This lesson resonated deeply with Ethan. He realized that he had been pursuing a false sense of value for most of his life. The more he had accumulated, the emptier he felt. But the more he embraced the richness of life's experiences, connecting with people, learning new skills, and exploring new places, the more fulfilled he became. The possessions that once seemed so important now felt insignificant compared to the memories he was creating. Ethan also began to understand another vital Stoic principle: self-care. He had always viewed self-care as a luxury, something that could be indulged in once success was achieved. But the Stoics taught that caring for oneself is not a mere indulgence, it is a fundamental responsibility. As Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." In other words, our mental and physical well-being shapes our entire existence. Ethan realized that he had neglected this aspect of his life for too long. He started incorporating Stoic practices into his daily routine. He began each morning with meditation, focusing on his breath and setting intentions for the day ahead. He maintained a gratitude journal, writing down the things he was grateful for. Simple things like a good cup of coffee, a meaningful conversation, or a beautiful sunset. He also made a conscious effort to maintain a balanced diet, exercise regularly, and get enough sleep. These simple acts of self-care not only improved his physical health, but also enhanced his mental clarity and emotional resilience. One day, Ethan's close friend Michael noticed the change in him. Michael had known Ethan for years and had always admired his ambition, but he was surprised by the calmness that now emanated from Ethan. Curious, he asked, "What's changed? You seem different, happier even." Ethan smiled and replied, "I realize that true wealth isn't about what you own, but about what you experience and how well you take care of yourself." Ethan explained how Stoicism had taught him that life's greatest treasures are not found in things, but in moments, relationships, and personal growth. He shared how prioritizing experiences over possessions and self-care over external validation had transformed his sense of fulfillment. Michael was intrigued and asked for the book that had inspired Ethan's journey. Ethan's story is a powerful reminder of one of Stoicism's most profound lessons. True value lies in experiences and self-care. In a world that constantly pushes us to acquire more, the Stoics teach us to focus on what truly matters: the quality of our experiences and the state of our inner well-being. Material wealth may bring temporary pleasure, but it is the richness of lived experiences and the nurturing of our mental and physical health that bring lasting happiness. The next time you find yourself feeling empty despite having everything you thought you wanted, remember Ethan's journey. Ask yourself, am I investing in experiences that enrich my soul, Am I caring for my mind and body as I should? The Stoics remind us that the most valuable things in life are often the simplest, those that can be felt, shared, and remembered, rather than owned, stored, or displayed. As Seneca wisely said, begin at once to live, and count each separate day as a separate life. Lessons 5. Patience and learning from mistakes are keys to success. On the outskirts of a bustling city, in a modest apartment filled with books and notes, lived a young woman named Maya. Maya was a dedicated scientist, passionate about uncovering solutions to pressing environmental issues. Her work involved long hours of research, countless experiments, and numerous dead ends. She had a fierce determination, but along with it came a crippling fear of failure. Maya believed that every mistake was a reflection of her inadequacy, a sign that she wasn't good enough for the goals she had set for herself. One rainy evening, after yet another experiment had failed, Maya sat alone in her cluttered lab, feeling defeated. She had spent months working on a new biodegradable material, but the results were far from promising. Frustrated, she threw her lab coat aside and slumped into a chair, her mind filled with doubts. Why can't I get this right? She thought. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Feeling disheartened, Maya decided to take a break. She poured herself a cup of tea and opened a book that her mentor had given her years ago, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. She flipped through its pages aimlessly until her eyes fell upon a passage that seemed to speak directly to her situation. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. The words were simple, yet profound. Marcus Aurelius, a Stoic philosopher and Roman emperor, was telling her that obstacles weren't barriers to success, they were integral to it. Maya paused to reflect on this idea. She realized that she had been so focused on achieving success quickly and perfectly that she had failed to appreciate the lessons embedded in her setbacks. Her fear of mistakes had blinded her to the fact that every failure was an opportunity for growth and refinement. Inspired by this Stoic wisdom, she decided to change her approach. Instead of seeing each failed experiment as a defeat, she began to see it as a step forward, a chance to learn, adapt, and improve. The next morning, Maya returned to her lab with renewed determination. She looked over her notes, carefully analyzing what had gone wrong in her previous attempts. Instead of rushing to restart the experiment, she took the time to review her methodology in detail, questioning each step with patience and curiosity. Her new approach was guided by another Stoic principle from Seneca, who once said, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare, but because we do not dare that they are difficult." Maya realized that daring to face her mistakes was the only way to overcome them. Days turned into weeks, and progress was slow. There were still setbacks, but Maya no longer saw them as roadblocks. Instead, she treated each mistake as a valuable lesson, an insight that brought her one step closer to the solution she sought. With each failed attempt, she became more patient, more focused, and more resilient. She understood now that patience was not about waiting, but about enduring with grace, as the Stoics taught. It was about staying committed to the process, even when results were not immediate. One afternoon, after months of persistent effort, Maya finally achieved a breakthrough. Her latest experiment had succeeded. The new biodegradable material she had developed was not only effective, but also scalable, a significant step forward in sustainable materials science. Maya felt a deep sense of fulfillment, not just because of the success itself, but because of the journey that had led to it. She had learned that success is not a straight line, but a series of curves, twists, and turns that require both patience and the willingness to learn from mistakes. As Maya prepared to present her findings at an international conference, she remembered another Stoic teaching from Epictetus. No great thing is created suddenly, any more than a bunch of grapes or a fig. If you tell me that you desire a fig, I answer you that there must be time. Let it first blossom, then bear fruit, then ripen. Maya understood now that success, like a fig tree, needed time to grow and mature. It required nurturing, persistence, and the ability to accept failures as part of the process. During her presentation, Maya shared not only her scientific findings, but also the personal lessons she had learned through her journey. She spoke candidly about the failures, the frustrations, and the moments when she had wanted to give up. She explained how the Stoic mindset had transformed her approach, teaching her that mistakes are not stumbling blocks, but stepping stones, opportunities to refine, adapt, and strengthen. The audience was moved by her honesty, and many found inspiration in her resilience. After the presentation, a young researcher approached Maya with tears in her eyes. "I've been struggling with my own project for so long," she said. "Hearing your story has given me hope. I've been so afraid of making mistakes that I lost sight of why I started in the first place." Maya smiled warmly and replied, "Remember, the only real failure is not learning from what didn't work. Patience and persistence are your greatest tools. Use them well." Maya's story is a testament to one of the core Stoic teachings. Patience and learning from mistakes are keys to success. The Stoics believed that true growth comes not from avoiding challenges, but from embracing them with patience and a willingness to learn. Mistakes are not failures in the Stoic sense. They are guides that show us where we need to adjust, where we need to grow. Patience, meanwhile, is the virtue that allows us to persist in the face of adversity, to endure the discomfort of uncertainty, and to trust in the process of gradual improvement. The next time you find yourself frustrated by slow progress or discouraged by setbacks, remember Maya's journey. Ask yourself, am I willing to be patient? Am I willing to learn from my mistakes? The Stoics remind us that greatness is not achieved overnight. It is the result of persistent effort, a willingness to embrace challenges, and the courage to learn from every failure along the way. As Marcus Aurelius wisely observed, the art of living is more like wrestling than dancing. It's not about avoiding difficulty, but mastering it, step by step, mistake by mistake. Lesson 6. No one can steal your peace unless you allow it. In a small coastal town surrounded by the tranquil sound of waves, there lived a fisherman named Liam. Every morning, Liam would set sail before dawn, guided by the stars and the rhythm of the sea. He was a simple man who found joy in the peace of the ocean, the quiet moments of solitude, and the slow pace of his work. But the town was changing rapidly. The once sleepy village had become a popular tourist destination, and with it came more noise, more people, and more stress. As the town grew busier, so did the complaints from its residents. Business owners felt the pressure of competition, families worried about rising costs, and local fishermen were frustrated with the newcomers encroaching on their fishing grounds. Liam noticed the increasing tension in his neighbors. People seemed more irritable, more anxious, and less tolerant of small inconveniences. He often heard remarks like, "These tourists have ruined everything," or, "If only things were like they used to be." One day, while Liam was selling his catch at the local market, a young vendor next to him was fuming about a tourist who had haggled aggressively over the price of a fish. The vendor turned to Liam and asked, "Doesn't it bother you that people have become so rude? How can you stay so calm?" Liam paused for a moment, then replied with a gentle smile, "The sea has taught me that I cannot control its waves, but I can always control how I steer my boat." The vendor looked puzzled, but Liam continued, "I've learned that true peace isn't about what happens around me, it's about how I respond to it." Liam's words were rooted in a deep understanding of Stoic philosophy, a wisdom he had gained from reading a weathered book he'd found in his grandfather's attic years ago. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. The teachings of Marcus Aurelius had resonated with Liam, particularly the idea that, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Liam had embraced this Stoic wisdom and made it a guiding principle in his life. He understood that while he could not control the actions or attitudes of others, he could always control his response to them. He had trained himself to remain centered, to let the chaos of the world pass over him like a wave breaking harmlessly against the hull of a sturdy boat. But there were times when even Liam's patience was tested. One afternoon, while returning from a long day of fishing, he found that his favorite spot on the beach, a quiet place where he often sat to watch the sunset, had been taken over by a noisy group of tourists. They were playing loud music, leaving trash behind, and showing little regard for the tranquility of the place. For a moment, Liam felt a surge of irritation. His peaceful sanctuary had been invaded. Then he remembered another Stoic teaching. External things are not the problem, it is your assessment of them. Remove the judgment and the disturbance is gone. Liam closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and chose to let go of his irritation. Instead of focusing on what had disturbed his peace, he shifted his attention inward, reminding himself that the beach itself was not what brought him peace, it was the stillness within. Liam quietly walked to another spot further down the beach, where the view of the sunset was just as beautiful. He sat down, feeling a sense of calm wash over him. It was a powerful moment for Liam, a reminder that no one could take his peace unless he allowed it. The noise around him no longer mattered, because he had reclaimed control over his response. The Stoic lesson that Liam had internalized was clear. True peace is not determined by external events, but by the strength of one's inner world. He understood that life would always have disturbances, whether they were noisy tourists, unforeseen setbacks, or unexpected losses. But he also knew that the real battle for peace was not fought in the world outside, but in the mind within. A few days later, a close friend of Liam's, John, came to visit him at the pier. John was visibly upset, having recently lost a business deal that he had been counting on. He vented his frustrations to Liam, saying, "I can't believe how unfair this world is. I did everything right, and still, things went wrong." Liam listened patiently, then replied softly, "I understand your disappointment, but let me ask you something. Will your anger change the outcome?" John shook his head, knowing it wouldn't. "Then why let it disturb your peace?" Liam continued. "You've done all you could, and that's enough. Now, focus on what you can do next, not on what you can't change." Liam's words were inspired by another Stoic teaching from Epictetus. Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens. For Liam, this was more than just philosophy. It was a way of life. He had learned to accept reality as it was, without trying to control it, because he knew that real power lies in mastering one's own reactions. That night, as Liam sat by the fire in his small cottage, he reflected on the Stoic journey he had embraced over the years. He had faced many storms, both literal and metaphorical, yet he had always found a way to maintain his peace. He realized that his inner calm had not come from avoiding challenges, but from understanding that his response was his own responsibility. Liam's story is a profound illustration of the Stoic teaching that no one can steal your peace unless you allow it. In a world full of unpredictable events, people and circumstances, the Stoics remind us that our inner peace is a fortress we build from within. It is a choice, not a condition. As Seneca wisely said, the mind that is anxious about future events is miserable. The Stoics believe that by mastering our minds, we master our lives, regardless of the chaos around us. The next time you feel your peace slipping away due to external events, remember Liam's approach. Ask yourself, am I letting this situation control me, or can I control my reaction to it? The Stoics teach us that the path to inner peace is paved with self-awareness, acceptance, and the ability to let go of what we cannot control. As Marcus Aurelius put it, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Lesson 7. Discipline is the bridge between goals and achievements. In a small town at the edge of a dense forest, there lived a young man named Jacob. He had big dreams of becoming an accomplished author. Ever since he was a child, Jacob had loved telling stories, and he envisioned one day writing a novel that would inspire others. But as much as he loved writing, Jacob struggled with the discipline needed to turn his dreams into reality. He would write enthusiastically for a few days, then get distracted, lose motivation, and let weeks pass by without touching his manuscript. Jacob's lack of discipline was not for lack of trying. He had read countless self-help books, made detailed plans, and even set deadlines for himself. Yet every time he tried to make progress, distractions seemed to find their way into his life. Social events, unexpected errands, or just the comfort of procrastination. The unfinished manuscript was a constant reminder of his unrealized potential, and it filled him with a sense of failure. One day, while taking a walk through the forest to clear his mind, Jacob stumbled upon an old cabin that belonged to a reclusive writer named Mr. Evans. The locals often spoke of Mr. Evans as a wise man, well versed in both literature and philosophy. Out of curiosity, Jacob approached the cabin and was surprised to find Mr. Evans sitting on the porch, reading a weathered book. The old man noticed Jacob's hesitant approach and invited him to sit. As they chatted, Jacob confessed his struggles with writing. "I have the ideas," he said, "but I just can't seem to stay consistent. It's as if something always gets in the way." Mr. Evans listened attentively, then pulled out a small book from his shelf, Discourses by Epictetus. He handed it to Jacob and said, "Read this passage." The passage read, "No great thing is created suddenly, any more than a bunch of grapes or a fig. If you tell me that you desire a fig, I answer you that there must be time. Let it first blossom, then bear fruit, then ripen." The words resonated deeply with Jacob. He realized that his problem wasn't a lack of talent or ideas, it was a lack of discipline, the very thing the Stoics emphasized as essential for achieving any worthwhile goal. Jacob had been waiting for inspiration to strike, hoping that passion alone would carry him through. But as Mr. Evans explained, discipline is not about waiting for the perfect moment, it's about creating the moment. Determined to change, Jacob decided to adopt a Stoic approach to his writing. He began by setting a strict schedule. He would write for 2 hours every morning, no matter what. At first, it was incredibly difficult. There were mornings when he didn't feel like writing, when the words didn't flow, or when his ideas seemed dull and uninspired. But Jacob remembered another Stoic teaching. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. The imagined difficulty of writing was often greater than the actual task. As the days turned into weeks, Jacob noticed a shift within himself. The once daunting task of sitting down to write became a routine. He was no longer driven by fleeting inspiration, but by a sense of commitment to his craft. He understood that discipline was the foundation of achievement. It was the bridge that connected his goals to his actions. Just as Seneca had said, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. The more disciplined Jacob became, the more opportunities he created for himself. Of course, there were still setbacks. Jacob faced moments of self-doubt, times when he felt his writing wasn't good enough, and days when he wanted to give up altogether. But the Stoic philosophy taught him to view these challenges as part of the process. He remembered another lesson from Marcus Aurelius. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Jacob began to apply this principle to his writing process, understanding that while he couldn't control how well each writing session would go, he could control his effort and consistency. Months passed, and Jacob's manuscript began to take shape. The initial mess of scattered ideas had evolved into a cohesive story, filled with characters, conflicts, and themes that he had always dreamed of creating. One morning, as he typed the final words of his novel, he felt a profound sense of fulfillment. Not just from completing the book, but from knowing that he had cultivated the discipline needed to achieve his goal. He had learned that discipline was not a restriction, but a form of freedom. Freedom to turn aspirations into reality. When Jacob's novel was finally published, it received positive reviews, not just for its story, but for its authenticity and depth. During a book signing event, a young reader approached Jacob and asked, "How did you manage to write such a meaningful book?" Jacob smiled and replied, "It wasn't smiled and talent or inspiration alone. It was discipline, the willingness to show up every day, even when it was hard." Jacob's story is a powerful reminder of the Stoic lesson that discipline is the bridge between goals and achievements. The Stoics believed that no great accomplishment could be achieved without the deliberate and consistent effort to reach it. Discipline for the Stoics was not just about achieving external goals. It was about mastering oneself, aligning actions with intentions, and building the inner strength needed to face challenges with resolve. The next time you feel overwhelmed by a goal that seems too big or distant, remember Jacob's journey. Ask yourself, am I willing to commit to the daily effort, even when it feels tedious? The Stoics teach us that true success is not measured by grand gestures or sudden breakthroughs, but by the small, consistent steps we take every day. As Epictetus wisely said, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Discipline is not just a means to an end, it is the end itself, the cultivation of a strong character and a focused mind, capable of achieving greatness, one deliberate step at a time. Lessons 8. Let go of attachment to outcomes. In a quaint village nestled between rolling hills, there lived a craftsman named Thomas. He was renowned for his exquisite wooden sculptures, each piece meticulously carved and detailed with a level of craftsmanship that seemed almost magical. People traveled from afar to see his work, admiring not just the beauty of his creations, but the dedication that shone through every curve and line. Yet, despite his success, Thomas carried a secret burden, a deep sense of dissatisfaction. Thomas was a perfectionist, driven by a constant need to create pieces that would be praised by everyone who saw them. He sought approval and validation, measuring the worth of his work by the reactions of others. Whenever a piece failed to receive the praise he had hoped for, Thomas would brood over it for days, feeling as though he had failed. His love for carving, once a joyful passion, had become a source of anxiety, clouded by the weight of his expectations. One evening, after finishing a sculpture that he felt particularly proud of, Thomas eagerly awaited the reaction of a visiting art critic. To Thomas's dismay, the critic's response was lukewarm. He acknowledged the skill behind the piece, but suggested it lacked the soul he was looking for. The words stunned Thomas deeply. He had poured his heart into the work, yet it wasn't enough. Frustrated and discouraged, he decided to take a walk to clear his mind. As he wandered through the village, Thomas found himself at a small bookstore run by an old friend. In the corner of the shop, his eyes caught a glimpse of a familiar title. The Enchiridion, by Epictetus, a Stoic philosopher whose teachings Thomas had once studied in his youth. Feeling a strange pull, he picked up the book and began to read. One line stood out to him like a beacon in the darkness. Do not seek to have events happen as you wish, but wish for them to happen as they do, and you will find peace. The words were both profound and unsettling. Thomas realized that his dissatisfaction did not stem from his work itself, but from his attachment to the outcome. He had been so focused on others' approval that he had forgotten the true essence of his craft. The joy of creation, the process of shaping raw wood into something meaningful. Epictetus's teaching made Thomas confront a difficult truth. He had lost his inner peace because he was trying to control what he couldn't, the opinions and reactions of others. Determined to free himself from this cycle, Thomas decided to embrace the Stoic principle of detachment from outcomes. He began by focusing on the process rather than the result. Each morning as he sat down to carve, he reminded himself that his work was a form of expression, not a means to impress. He adopted another Stoic mantra: do your work with purpose, but let go of your need for control over the results. At first it felt unnatural. The urge to seek validation was strong, but Thomas persisted, treating each day as an exercise in mental discipline. Gradually, Thomas found that his carving became more fluid and intuitive. By releasing his attachment to the outcome, he rediscovered the simple joy of the craft itself. He carved for the sake of carving, not for the sake of praise. He even began to experiment more boldly, trying new techniques without the fear of failure holding him back. It was as though a weight had been lifted from his shoulders, and his work began to reflect a newfound sense of freedom and authenticity. One day, a wealthy merchant commissioned Thomas to create a large sculpture for his mansion. Thomas accepted the task, but made a conscious decision. He would focus entirely on the process, not on whether the merchant would be pleased with the result. He poured his soul into the piece, working diligently but without the usual anxiety. When the sculpture was completed, Thomas felt a deep sense of satisfaction, not because he expected praise, but because he had given his best effort without being consumed by the need for approval. When the merchant came to inspect the finished sculpture, his response was not what Thomas expected. The merchant looked puzzled, not quite understanding the abstract design Thomas had chosen. He hesitated, then said, "This is different from what I imagined." Thomas braced himself for criticism, but remained calm. "I understand," he replied, "but this is what the wood told me to create. It is true to itself, as I am to my craft." To Thomas's surprise, the merchant eventually grew to appreciate the piece, finding a deeper meaning in its design after living with it for a while. But for Thomas, the real victory was not in the merchant's delayed approval, it was in his own detachment from the need for it. He had created something meaningful, not because it was liked, but because it was true to his vision and effort. He understood now that success, in the Stoic sense, was measured by inner alignment, not external applause. One evening, while watching the sunset from his workshop, Thomas reflected on the journey he had undergone. He remembered another Stoic teaching from Marcus Aurelius: "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." By changing his mindset and letting go of outcomes, Thomas had found a deeper, more sustainable form of happiness. One that came from within, unaffected by the unpredictable judgments of others. Thomas's story embodies one of the Stoic philosophy's most liberating lessons: let go of attachment to outcomes. The Stoics taught that while we should always strive to do our best, we must also accept that results are often beyond our control. The outcome of any endeavor, whether it's the reception of a piece of art, a business deal, or a relationship, is influenced by many factors that we cannot foresee or influence. What we can control, however, is the effort we put in and the mindset we maintain throughout the process. The next time you find yourself overly concerned with how others will react to your efforts or anxious about achieving a specific result, remember Thomas's journey. Ask yourself, am I focusing more on what I can control or on what I can't? The Stoics teach us that true freedom comes from detaching ourselves from results and finding satisfaction in our genuine effort and purpose. As Epictetus wisely put it, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. By embracing this Stoic wisdom, you too can experience the peace and fulfillment that come from letting go of outcomes. Remember that your worth is not determined by the outcome of your efforts, but by the integrity, commitment, and authenticity you bring to them. True mastery, according to the Stoics, is not about controlling results, but about mastering oneself. Conclusion: life is a series of lessons, challenges, and opportunities for growth. The timeless wisdom of Stoicism not only changes how we live, but also transforms who we become. By adopting these teachings, you can cultivate a resilient, fulfilled, and peaceful life. If you found value in this video, please consider sharing it to spread the message of Stoic wisdom. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay updated with new content on the Stoic Mindset channel. Remember, the power to change your life lies within you. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay stoic.